Hello and welcome to this week's BizSmart Lunch and Learn webinar. Our weekly webinars are aimed to provide advice and share knowledge amongst business owners on key business topics and specialist areas. This is part of our service to our Smart Room members. If you're not already a member or a BizSmart client and would like to access our archive of webinars, then please visit our website biz-smart.co.uk and go to the Smart Room page. Our host joining me today is BizSmart Select member David Lynes from UniqueIQ. But before we start the webinar, can I ask you all to use the question mark function on your screen to post any questions that you may have for David, and he will do his best to answer them all at the end of the session. Thank you, David. Over to you.
Okay, thanks, Caroline. The subject of the webinar today is regarding kind of working from home, so home working policies. Our background is in kind of software development, and we work in the home care, contract cleaning, facilities management sectors for our IQ Care Planner and IQ Time Card systems. So we come across this home working kind of policy question in a number of different scenarios and settings. So I thought it'd be a good idea to spend sort of a few minutes today covering some of the major points on what is home working, whether you go along the home working route, and what sort of pointers, what starting points to kind of really sort of go through really. So we'll dive straight in terms of what home working is. There's probably sort of two main categories. You have your office related sort of home working. So this is where you've got staff members that may work from home a day a week, may do a few days at home, and they are kind of mixing and matching their home working and office-based duties. So it could be, for example, it's closer to go from home to a meeting on a particular day, and therefore you've got some home working element to that. So it could be that an employee is on a sort of sales role, and again you've got a kind of mix and match. You have got roles where they are completely at home, so it could be that you've got an organisation that is skeleton staff in an office, and then a workforce that is out and about. So that's more to do with the travel-related roles. And we come across that role and that type more typically in home care, cleaning sectors, where most of the staff are out and about. You have some staff in the office and they're office-based, but you then have the majority, 90% plus of this sort of staff members, employees, working out of the office. The office is not their base. And so, like I say, in terms of home working, they're the sort of two major sort of categories. In terms of home working stats and who does it and how many, in 1998 there were estimated 1.3 million home workers within the sort of current workforce. These stats are taken from the Office of National Statistics, and that's increased steadily, not dramatically, but steadily, and up to sort of 2014, where there's about 4.2 million people working from home, and more than a third of those are actually employees of another business. So the rest are kind of self-employed, might own their own businesses and those sorts of things. So it's interesting to see that there's a third of those 4.2 million people that are employed by companies, and those businesses have put a policy in place, put some procedures in place to actually sort of make sure their staff members are adequately supported, adequately protected, and things like that really. So, and the sort of estimates by sort of 2020 are that will sort of climb to sort of 12 million people working from home. And again, technology will help facilitate that, and I'll go through some various sort of reasons why home working is set to continue to increase over the coming years. So what is home working? It's in essence a flexible working pattern. So depending on an agreement with an employee, it can be used in conjunction with other sort of benefits packages. So it could be flexible hours, it could be working part-time, it could be flexi-time type situations. It could be perhaps parents looking at flexible times in terms of picking up children and other commitments outside of work. So it can be used in conjunction with those, but not solely. It can be used in isolation. It doesn't have to be used with other sort of flexible working type scenarios. So as an employer, you have got options. You can mix and match. You can stipulate the working patterns and be able to sort of tailor it to essentially your requirements. There's no hard and fast rule in terms of, it has to be with flexible working or it has to be with part-time employees. You can mix and match, to that extent. So I guess the next question is, okay, so that's home working, but I guess why? And I've picked out probably sort of 10 sort of reasons kind of why we see home working currently, and therefore why it's set to increase really. So overheads, business rates, utility bills, office space are often quite expensive, particularly in sort of built up areas, and therefore actually if you could potentially, I don't know, have 50% of your workforce working from home, there's potentially quite a big sort of saving potential there. Now there are some costs on the other side, but from having bums on seats, there is a potential route there to have more staff members, but reduce office size and therefore the costs associated with that sort of infrastructure. Currently, technology is making it easier to work from home. You've got technology, over the internet. You've got software systems. For a few years now, we've had systems like Skype, webinar type systems, webcams, remote desktops. There's all sorts of technology that's been built over the last sort of, particularly 5 to 10 years that actually, used correctly can actually help facilitate sort of home working, remote working. Mobile phone technology has increased, massively over the last sort of 3 to 5 years. And again, those sorts of tools help us to perform our job function, I guess, outside of the sort of 4 walls of the office. More employees are asking for, the flexibility to work from home occasionally, and that might be due to reasons, personal reasons. It might be that they've got tradesmen coming into a property and need to be at home, or the children are off school, those sorts of things. So I think it's accepted more and more now that more employees do ask for that flexibility, because I think they do see there is a route, there is a possibility that they could perform their job function at home or somewhere else. So again, with that increase of employees asking for it, I think companies will be not forced to do it, but will look at those options. So yeah, the next point here was increasing numbers of employees with responsibilities caring for family, including elderly. We work in the home care sector, so the ageing population is increasing, and there are more and more people caring for not just children but elderly also, and therefore if there's possibilities to work from home, whether it be sort of on a flexible basis, they are options, and again, increase the potential numbers of people kind of looking to work from home. Rising cost of commuting, the rising time of commuting also, there's various motorways that you sit on there for what seems like hours, and therefore if that can be cut out, that's a cost reduction, a stress reduction. And also, government are trying to push for people with disabilities to come back into work, and therefore actually the workplace may not be completely ideal for that sort of employee to start with. And so again, a working from home type policy procedure might actually allow you to recruit those perfect candidates. And then we're also seeing, and this is sort of not just us but others are seeing, that actually employees and employers are reporting increased productivity from staff working from home. So creates a better work-life balance. On occasions it doesn't feel like work, but obviously it does give that sort of flexibility for those employees. So yeah, there's the increased productivity, which from an employer's point of view is obviously of interest, sort of going forward really. So I've got sort of 7 points now I just want to sort of quickly work through, and this is the sort of, I believe, the sort of major points to your kind of policy and really the sort of thinking points for whether you decide to do working from home policies, and how you sort of start sort of working through that, because it can be, I guess, a bit of a minefield, because I guess every business is different. So point number 1, who gets to work from home? So every employee is different. Some work from home very well, some don't. So I guess it's actually selecting those employees or them requesting ones that do believe that they can work from home sort of really well, and for it to be a benefit to them. I've got some employees in my office that know flatly that working from home just isn't for them because of various sort of third party sort of issues or environment. However, I do have staff that don't work in the same part of the country, so we have a mix and match, but it doesn't suit everybody. And even a hybrid, a kind of mix and match, doesn't necessarily suit everybody. So some do prefer to be in the office and that's their work time and they go home. Some do feel they are more productive, they get more done, they feel happier by actually having either a complete work at home or a hybrid of sort of the two systems really. So first one is who gets to work from home. Number two is equipment. So I talked about very briefly technology. So again, depending on the nature of the business, you need to kind of look at what technology, what equipment you need to sort of provide for that particular employee or group of employees. And so you need to think about that carefully, whether it's, you know, broadband, you know, connections, telephones, is it a laptop, is it a computer? And, you know, all of the sort of, you know, do you need to go to the extent of actually, you know, refurbishing, you know, a room in somebody else's house to work as an office? So, you know, there are, again, different extents of sort of technology and systems that you need to kind of consider when looking at home working. Some can very simply be a mobile phone and a laptop. But again, depending on the business and what you do, you may need connection into various systems, and therefore you may need sort of more equipment to do that. Point number three is health and safety. So this needs to be considered because you need to kind of consider, like I said, the health and safety aspects of somebody working from home, somebody away from base, in an environment that you perhaps don't control. Now, in terms of a home environment, you know, from my perspective, not too many hazards. However, you know, it's worth sort of having a, you know, talk to a health and safety consultant in terms of your policy, just to make sure you've got sort of all bases covered on that. Next plan, you know, the next element is number four is company security. So we're in this sort of IT sector, so we are very much about kind of data security and control of access and those sorts of things really. So information, you know, is obviously key and critical. It's great having access to systems, CRM, sales, all those sorts of systems. However, that employee has access to those in the comfort of their own home. And so you just need to make sure you've got a policy that covers control of access, how you can revoke access in the event that that employee is no longer with you, and that you can monitor that access so that it's not being abused, so it's not being misused in any way. And again, as if they were in your office. So again, in terms of your policy, you want to perhaps think about the systems and areas that you are exposing yourself to, so that if a laptop is lost or stolen, if a PC is, you know, stolen from somebody else's home, or a third party is accessing those systems, that you've got, you know, proper controls in place to be able to limit that and protect that information and that data. Monitoring and performance. Now, I've done a previous webinar which talked about kind of the sort of you know, the relationship and the trust and the monitoring of kind of remote workforces. So you may want to revisit that, but again, you need to put something in your policy and procedures to actually monitor performance and make sure that actually that employee is delivering what you believe they are, as opposed to it kind of coming to bite you again sort of in the future. And what I mean by that is making sure that, you know, it might be software to help you do this, but that you are tracking performance, tracking those actions, making sure that their daily function is being performed. And conversely, the employee needs to be thinking about that as well. How can they prove that those sort of activities within the business are being done? And also how you're ensuring that they're working at an optimal level. You know, does the effort level drop when it's sunny and perhaps the garden is calling and a nice glass of wine? And so actually putting a procedure and a policy in place that you can actually monitor that activity. From a sales point of view, that's nice and easy, but other sectors, other areas of the business may be a bit more sort of difficult to track and monitor. And really understanding your next point is, you know, what's the employee's motivations for working from, you know, home. So it's also setting expectations that actually this is work. This isn't a day off. It isn't a, you know, flexi time type situation. You're asking the employee to work a set amount of hours in a set period of time, and so it shouldn't be treated as you know, like I say, flexi time type activities. It really should be, I'm expecting you to do 8 hours work today. Where you take your lunch, that's entirely up to you. However, I'm expecting a certain level of activity and work from you. And again, that feeds into the monitoring side, really. And then finally, it's the wording of the policy. So my suggestion would be, making it as detailed and robust as possible, because that then sort of details and sets out sort of very clearly both parts of the relationship. And I guess it's the same with any contract, making sure that both parties are fully aware of responsibilities, the do's and don'ts. And so setting those expectations, being very clear about what you're wanting as an employer, and making sure the employee understands those, means that in the future you're not going to get a sort of an issue with, well, I didn't think it was meant to be like that, or I didn't understand that. You can actually set those out sort of very clearly, and make sure that the employee knows that performance is being monitored, it's being tracked, and so that you can have a really good sort of working relationship. Because I think possibly it tends to be, if they're out of the office, an element of distrust can come in, and so it's making sure you've got really sort of robust policy, helps you set out what your expectations are. But certainly for us as a business, it's working well for us. It does have its challenges, communication being one of them, but there are lots of software systems out there, tools, to actually sort of help sort of facilitate that. So that is technically the end of the presentation, but we'll open up for any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. David, you've had a question come through here from Scott, and he would like to know, how are clients that you are working with dealing with home workers, perhaps looking at the care sector?
Okay, yeah, I mean, this is in multiple ways. So as mentioned right at the beginning, we work in the home care sector as well as other sectors, and the home care sector does tend to have 95% of the staff not office-based, they're home-based. And one client we visited last week was scheduling and kind of rostering and choosing their schedules sort of very, very close together. So obviously those employees are using their home as a base. They have in their employment contracts a sort of working from home sort of policy. Those in the home care sector are not tending to do their job function at home. They are technically classed as home workers, but their job function is actually at a client's address. So whether it's personal care, sort of elderly care, those domiciliary care. So those job functions are being performed. However, with our IQ timecard system and IQ care planner systems, that allows us to track and monitor, and also our clients to track and monitor performance to make sure that visits are being attended and those sorts of things. So they've got a really quite strict process of scheduling and rostering the right people in the right places, monitoring to make sure that gets delivered, and then they're on top of that doing reviews and spot checks and those sorts of things. So they are home workers. They're not based at home, but they are using their home as a starting point.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question is from Ben, and he asks, what would you say is the main cause of breakdown in employee relationships when dealing with home workers?
Okay, yeah, I think I've probably sort of touched on it very sort of briefly, and I guess it's something from personal experience is trust. I think when you've got employees that are disconnected from the normal office routine, and you perhaps don't hear from them for a couple of days, there can be an element of distrust. I guess I always err on I want to know what somebody's doing, because I've always had sort of people in the office. So I'd say trust, because that can be a bit of a downward spiral. I guess if you've got the right monitoring, the right sort of tracking and right systems in place, and they're on target, then it kind of nips that trust issue, sort of straight away, really. So like I say, for us, it was a trust element. We've always hired for people in the office. However, we've got a sort of a hybrid now where we've got some members in a different part of the country. So I would say trust. But like I say, with various systems and software, you can, eliminate that almost completely.
Okay, thank you. Another question from Joe. Do you think technology can help increase home working?
I think absolutely, yes. I mean, we are in a sort of technology business. Some of the new technology we see, I think, allows home working to happen even easier. So, with some of the predictions of 12 million people sort of working from home in 2020, the speed of internet and the speed of kind of, home broadbands, the way that CRM systems and software are all going online, the way that products like IQ Timecard and planning software like IQ Care Planner go all online, again allows for people to actually sort of do their job function from home or somewhere else. I think sort of the workforce is generally, accepting that, people access their emails, whether it's on their phones or laptops and those sorts of things. So I think it will still be gradual. I don't think we'll see, a massive spike just because technology X comes out, but I think all the time it's becoming more convenient for us to not commute, to be elsewhere when we're performing our job function. So absolutely yes. There's already a lot of technology out there already, in various fashions. I think that will continue to grow, and continue to move towards that sort of 12 million people sort of working from home.
Great. Thank you very much, David. If you do have any further questions for David, his email is on the screen at the moment. I'm sure he would love to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you.
Thank you again, David, then, for hosting today's webinar. I will be sending out a copy of his presentation and contact details out to you all shortly. But before we close, just a quick reminder, this webinar is part of our service to our Smart Room members. If you're not already a member or a BizSmart client and would like to access the archive of webinars, then please visit our website, biz-smart.co.uk, and go to the Smart Room page. We hope you enjoy the rest of your day and that you can join us for our webinar next time. Thank you all for listening.